What's good, everybody? Welcome to another broadcast here for Fast Break here for Ice Sports Radio, your for sports. On tonight's show, it's prediction time. Who will be our MVP winners? Who will win the NBA championship for the upcoming 2025-2026 season? Also, other predictions we have. We'll put on the line here tonight. D-Locke, what you got for us in store for tonight?
I mean, we got some real interesting stuff tonight, man. Like you said, we definitely going over championships, who makes the Western Conference Finals, who also makes the Eastern Conference Finals, MVP predictions. We'll see who's going to be, those players that's going to make that big push this year. What teams surprise a lot of people. I'm hoping Orlando Magic is one of them.
Yeah, lots to talk about, lots to get into tonight. The predictions are fun. We love doing them. Also, we got to talk about Kevin Durant's contract extension. What's that mean for his basketball future and the Houston Rockets' future? So we'll dive into that, much more here on the show here tonight. Also, we'll also talk about, who could be surprised in their predictions. That and much more here on Fast Break here live for Ice Sports Radio. You're the for sports. We'll catch you on the other side.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all-brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. iSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
It's fixed. All right. Welcome back, and thank you to our lovely sponsors. You make it help with push this network through. So shout out to the sponsors here on their messages right there. Welcome back. This is Fast Break here for Ice Sports Radio, your Week for Sports. Happy October the 19th for y'all. The month is moving along very fast. We're past that halfway mark for October. You know, Halloween's around the corner. Football season we're in the thick of it. But football's in the thick of it, and the NBA season is about to start right around the corner, D-Lock.
Correct.
Before we get to deep about title predictions, MVP odds, all that stuff, what's your expectations for the 2025-2026 NBA season? You know, we saw the Thunder, the young Thunder, you know, win the NBA championship. You know, we see like the older heads like Kevin Durant, LeBron, Steph Curry, still playing at a high level, but do show some signs slowing down. You know, Joel Embiid, what about him? What's he going to look like? Can the Sixers bounce back? You know, can like one of these lowly teams that we've been seeing in the dumps the past few years, like we went over the past couple of weeks, can they rise to the top or at least be in playoff contention? You know, how is the new the TV partners going to look with NBC, Peacock, Amazon? How's that going to work with things with the NBA and their presentation? So I'll throw the ball to you. What's your expectations for the 2025-2026 NBA season?
I think this is going to be, one of the best seasons ever. I think one of the biggest things that we got to realize is the athletes or the ball players that we grew up watching are getting older. Steph Curry, LeBron, Jimmy Butler. I think we're going to start seeing these guys start to still play consistent at a pretty high level, but I think we start to see the younger guys start to slowly take over. I think we kind of seen a piece of that last year. But Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, I think is going to play better. He's going to have a better season. It's going to step up. SGA, I think these guys are going to continue to show that the NBA is in great hands. Ant-Man. I think we're going to see a lot of these guys start to take over the NBA and be the top star that they can be in, that we want them to be. Like I said, we've seen LeBron, be the face of the league for so long. Steph Curry being a part of that. Now it's slowly going to the Joker. And Anthony Edwards is starting to kind of feel that role of being that guy as well. And now obviously we've seen what SGA has done as a player and as a team, OKC Thunder. So I think we're going to see a big transition. I think that also we start to see Luka also be, continue to be that face of the NBA. I think as much as we talk about that trade with the Mavericks, I think the spotlight is really going to be on him a hell of a lot more now that he's in LA. That's going to play a huge part. Also knowing that already LeBron is going to be out for a month. I think now we're going to see more of, Luka taking the reins of the Lakers and seeing what we're going to see moving forward once LeBron does eventually call it a career. So I think that my biggest thing, the expectations, is we see these younger guys take over the NBA. We love seeing Steph, LeBron, these guys take over, but now we're seeing how much more talented that this league is. I mean, we got a lot of guys that could be the face of the NBA. That could be candidates. You got Joker, you got Giannis, you got SGA. It's a few guys that Jason Tatum. These guys that we start to see that can Luka. These guys can be the face of the NBA, and we have some good guys that follow up. So I think the league is in great hands. I think that's my biggest expectation, is just to see that these younger guys do take over. Also, I want to see kind of what the Shaq and Charles Barkley and that crew looks like with ESPN. I mean, I really want to see how that's gonna mesh. I think you said before. Let's not hope Stephen they don't try to crash this crew that they have. Yeah, I mean they work so perfect together. I think Stephen A. just needs to continue to do his thing with First Take. I guess he show up from time to time, but to be the guy that's on the 24/7 or every show, I think it's kind of mess with that chemistry that those guys already have. We know that because of Shaq and Charles Barkley history of getting into it as basketball players, they are a comedy together. on the show together. And a lot of people watch it for that reason. So I think it's gonna be very interesting to see how that plays out. And also for me, I think one of the biggest expectations I do have is I think the East is going to be a hell of a lot tougher than what we're used to. We're used to seeing just the Boston Celtics and maybe the Miami Heat, but now we're going to see teams like the Orlando Magic kind of step up and be a team that can pose a threat to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. We're going to see the Knicks be who they are. The Pacers, I think it's going to take them a little bit of time to get back. But I think you're going to see some teams start to younger teams. The Detroit Pistons might come around and have a hell of a season, with Cade Cunningham leading the charge. So I think we're going to see a tougher East this year. That's my biggest thing. I really hope to see that because as we talked about before, me building that Eastern Conference list was a hell of a lot easier than me thinking to build this Western Conference ranking. So for me, I think it's like I said, the East is going to be pretty interesting, but I can't wait to see these younger players continue to take over as a face and show how deep this league is with talent.
Good stuff. Good stuff. I think for me, the expectation for the season. I'll start just player wise. Like you brought up about the young guys, like some of these younger guys in the mid-20s or so. I kind of compare it. I watch wrestling. I kind of compare it to that in a sense. Like if you look at the wrestling landscape right now, I'll just keep on WWE focus. You got a lot of older guys on top on the scene. If you watch wrestling, you kind of know where I'm going with this. Like CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes, Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, Brock Lesnar, guys in like late 40s, mid 40s, and then some late 30s. And then with wrestling, you need fresh guys up top, to kind of still sell the next generation. In the NBA, I think we somewhat got that, but you still got some of the older guys like Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, LeBron, and others in the fold that's still very popular, but you don't know when the curtain's going to call from. Like you mentioned about LeBron. LeBron's gonna be out till mid-November. I think this is the perfect time, in that wrestling analogy, kind of like Seth Rollins going out with a shoulder injury. You got the new young guy, Luka, who's very popular, but now since LeBron's out the way, can he take more of that spotlight and be more in the face and focus of not only the Lakers but the NBA?
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of like that in Dallas, but now you got that LA market behind you. You got new ownership behind you. You slimmed down. You look good. You played very well in the European basketball over the summer. Can you take this newfound confidence, this new expectations, new contract you signed with the Lakers, and do some things with that? We shall see. Other guys like Anthony Edwards, can he continue to rise? Can he get over the hump of getting past like OKC, Denver to make his first NBA Finals? I think that's one thing that's something I would like to follow throughout the year. Can he, get over the hump and lead his team to the NBA Finals? That's one story right there. Another storyline, the Memphis Grizzlies for me. Ja Morant got a lot of potential. We discussed this over the years. Is this like the year, like all the BS is behind him? Like you got no lawsuits on you. The injuries are past behind you. You told your daddy to chill. You're not running the same crew trying to be a tough guy, whatever. Can you get the Memphis Grizzlies back on track? That's all I'm saying. And then like team-wise, storyline-wise, like the Miami Heat. Tyler Hero's going to be out. You're kind of like a team just this in the middle. Which direction you going to go? Eric Spoelstra seems like he's going on where he got named the head coach for the men's basketball team, Team USA, which was a good move by them. But other than that, Bam Adebayo and Norman Powell, other than that, that's where we're going with this team. How long do you hang on to some of these guys to ship off to get assets? We're talking about Andrew Wiggins possibly getting traded sometime down the line. When you pull the trigger on that. And then like some of the lower bottom teams like the Wizards, Hornets, Bulls, can they make strides for a positive future? Raptors, I throw them in there as well. Can y'all make strides for a positive future? Because some of y'all it's getting close to a decade. Y'all been in the same place for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, unlike the NFL, in which you make money regardless of how bad you are, just look at the Titans. The NBA is different. The revenue system is different. So, like, how you going to hold on to something and be bad and lose money at it for so long? That's my thing. Other than that, I'm curious how the broadcasting system's going to work with the new partners. With the Amazon Prime one, hopefully Terry Woods will do a good job as a studio host and not be like, what Erin Andrews, when she moved over to Fox and did her thing and that just fell out the train tracks quick. Hopefully it won't be like that. Hopefully, she's been seasoned enough that she can carry that, and hopefully the people they put, beside her, can help elevate her and all that and have a great, studio crew for the year. We shall see, guys like Carmelo, Dirk, I think I saw Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter. Those guys, hopefully they will help along the way and bring good analysis. And I think that's one thing with these guys. I hope they bring good analysis, because over at ESPN, as we've seen the past few years, Kendrick Perkins, he ain't it. I'm sorry. Bob Myers, he recently just got is going to be working with the Philadelphia 76 owner. I guess it's like, managing all his sports teams in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, the Sixers, the Commanders, the hockey team as well. I think it's the Flyers that he owns. Let me double check that. So, hopefully, we get good analysis over the year, over the season. The Inside the NBA crew, like you mentioned, they don't select dates, how they going to look throughout the year. And like you said, and we talked about this off the air, like, just I don't want to see no press release or Ernie Johnson looking to the camera saying, well, we got a special guest here today. Welcome, fellas, to Stephen A. Smith. No, I don't want to see that.
Nah.
I don't want that. I think everybody push hard for keep these guys together. And I'm not saying Stephen A. Smith is toxic right now, but you just don't want to mess it. I just think you don't mess up the vibe of the beginning of the NBA year. So that's my thing. I think, and this is an extra question right here. Terry Rodriguez says, what do you think about the NBA being back on NBC? Round Bar Rock will make his return to TVs. What you think about that? What you think about the NBA being back on NBC?
I don't think it's a bad idea. I think I obviously prefer ESPN because of the coverage. But I know NBC does do like Sunday Night Football sometimes, so they do have different ones that they do. But this is all about money. You know what I mean? This is a big thing about money. So I really want to see how that's gonna play out. It's crazy. I just actually got I just went and got ESPN bundle. So literally, I have every ESPN 3, ESPN 2, SEC Network, every ESPN I think like platform under that umbrella. So I was about to be excited to watch literally every NBA game from it, like as long as they're coming on. So, but I know sometimes NBC they don't pair with ESPN that much. So I really want to see how that's going to play out. But obviously, I think a lot of noticeable big time games will be on ESPN, especially for those coverages like those Wednesday and Friday games. So as we always see it, usually is that Tuesday or Thursday would be maybe 1 or 2 games, and then that Monday, Wednesday, Friday are the very loaded slate of games where it's probably 10 games or 12 games. So I would say probably going to see NBC on some of those Tuesday and Thursday slate games where it's just 2 games, big games. Like I think even looking at it, I think it's 2 games on. It's 2 games on. 2 games on Tuesday, and then we come back. Yeah, I think it's 2 games on Tuesday, and then that Thursday we have 2 more. Yeah, we got Thunders and Pacers and Nuggets and Warriors. So now ESPN does have those, but for it to open up NBC, like I said, I'm pretty sure they wanted to get the kickoff of the season. But again, they don't want ESPN to have too much fun because they know ESPN got the damn, like I said, Monday night football games. And then, like I said, Tuesday be the NBC game. So I think it's, like I said, it's a big thing about money. I'm definitely going to see how this coverage is gonna look on both ends.
I think to answer his question, I think it's good that it's back on the NBA, back on NBC. I like that. I think it's good for the. I think it's good because, I think that's where we saw a great, viewing experience as as a child or whatever, or as growing up, like going back in the day, you had like 3 games back to like a triple header sometimes or double headers on Sundays, on the NBC broadcast back in the day. And if they could bring some of that back, especially later on, in the season once football ends and whatnot, that'd be great. Those all day, triple headers and stuff like that in NBC, which I don't think is going to happen because I think they still got that ABC ESPN deal that flips over in January that kind of picks up as well. But hearing the round ball rock would be great. Even though if you watch college basketball, you see Fox Sports use it on their broadcast and stuff like that. It's like I hear it on a college basketball on that Fox. It's like it just don't sound right. It's cool that they use it, but it's just like, it don't hit. On Big East basketball between Providence and Creighton. You know what I'm saying? So, we'll see how it affects things and stuff like that. But this nostalgia can only get you so far. It's like all about presentation, how things look, how these teams play and whatnot. It's great they bring the music back, but it's like the play on the court, how these teams play, all that stuff. So, and then the announcers, how that's going to work. Reggie Miller was on that side of things. I think with NBC, maybe double check that. I want to say it was Amazon, but it's just like everybody's signed everywhere. Trying to pull it up. Let's see. So yeah, he's on ABC broadcast. So people are kind of tired of him. How is he going to change up things, or does he change up things at all? So it's like wait and see. We'll see how things work out for everybody. Yeah, I think within a couple months we'll talk about and see how things are, gauge how everything is, and we'll just go from there. I think we got another one right here, D-Lock. Good evening, guys. Small markets in the NBA don't make as much, but the new TV deals, I'm so pumped for NBC to have basketball again. Yeah. So I never got as happy that NBC got basketball again. And I think, let me ask you this, D-Locke. Do you think NBC suffered, in a sense, since the NBA been gone sports-wise? Olympics aside, you know, you think NBC was somewhat, I won't say suffered. That's kind of strong because, I'm watching Sunday Night Football right now, but
Right.
do you think they suffered just having general sports as a sense of the past decade or so? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a I wouldn't I wouldn't say they suffered too much because of the sports that they're covering. You know what I mean? They got NASCAR, they got obviously Olympics, like you said, they got golf, they got soccer and Premier Leagues. So they got a lot of big time leagues that they cover. Now, during the season, they do have during this part, we talk about how fast October is going around, or this year is coming. Football is slowly we're in the middle of football, and basketball is starting to cook up. Without NBA on NBC, they just have really Sunday night football. So there's not that much that they really have. You know what I mean? And they have soccer from time to time. Now we're talking about obviously every 4 years Olympics. That's going to be wonderful for them, but that is talking about every 4 years. Now, me being a track guy, would love the fact that track does get that attention. But every 4 years is, right. Like I said, that's not enough time for track specifically, and how that impacts NBC. Now, what they're trying to do for track specifically is they're trying to talk about world championships and have other meets that are in Europe to be talked about more. But the revenue that brings in is pennies compared to what the NBA can. You know what I mean? That's pennies to compare to what football is possibly bringing in just on them Sunday night games. So I won't say they suffered too much. I would say it's more so of a huge benefit because obviously we know how often we have NBA games. Like I was just talking to my one of my friends, one of my bros, and this. Usually, what I do is we always have a fantasy league that we start. We got our NFL one. We usually do an NBA one, but I ain't gonna lie, man. This year I'm probably not gonna do the NBA because we literally have games every day. So you got to rotate your players literally every day because it's games every day. You know what I mean? You got your slate of people. Like I was just saying, like you pick up and drop somebody. I think you can only pick up and drop somebody maybe like twice a week. So you picking up somebody that's gonna be playing for two times out the week, but then drop somebody that may play 3 times out that week. So I say that to say that there's games every week, meaning that this is where the NBC is gonna be beneficial of because they're gonna have not just Sunday night where the 49ers and the Falcons are playing Sunday night, or I think last week it was the Lions and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Cool, they got that. But now they're going to have that Tuesday. They have 2 good games of NBA, then possibly some more games following that week. And then you already know once this season starts, man, on Sunday is literally the only day where NBA games are earlier in the day. We have games that start at 12, 1, possibly 2, 6:30. A lot of times we have games that start later on the day, 7 o'clock, the premier times. So, I mean, looking at it, starting Tuesday, man, we got games all the way about through May. So we got a lot of good games coming around, and I think that's what NBC is going to be very beneficial of.
Yeah, I think when they lost the NBA rights around like 2003 or so, and then they went to ESPN, ABC, and then of course they still stay on Turner. And then of course, if you had League Pass, you had League Pass. But after the NBA went away, they got the football Sunday night rights. They got that. I think besides that, and they're trying to do like the NBC Sports Channel. They're trying to do things with that over the years. Having guys like Michael Smith, Michael Hawley on that. for years, in which I think they shut that down. Michelle Beadle, they still trying to make her thing. That didn't last long. So, I mean, they try to do the sports channel, but they didn't have the substance, of besides the NFL, to do, continuous sports talk, and didn't really work. Now you got the NBA back in the fold. Now you got the NFL, which you're hosting the Super Bowl on NBC this year. Like the aforementioned Olympics. Brian brought up, they might get the MLB in the summer. So now NBC, which, every 4 years, everybody tuning in for the Olympics, in the Summer Olympics, then, the winter as well. Now, they have become a hub of sports on not only just NBC, but Peacock as well.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not forget that. So, the college football, the Notre Dame deal, they got the Big Ten. Let's not forget about that. The Big Ten deal that Kevin Warren kind of, I see you trying to do, but it's kind of like, man, you kind of just fucked it all up in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because hell, I was watching games earlier. You doing promos? They doing the CBS promos for 2:30 for, I think, Minnesota and somebody else, and UCLA. Excuse me, who's going on a hot streak right now. But anyways, but having said all that, the Big Ten basketball is on there. Very good games on there every once in a while if you get the right matchup. So for NBC to be back in the fold of things and coming in strong for the past couple of years, great sign. They always did a great job of their coverage. Some new names will be in there. No more Bob Costas, for example. Not going to be with the network, but you got new faces in the fold. So we'll see how that works out and all that good jazz as well. Before we go to first break, D-Locke, any more thoughts about your expectations of the season?
I mean, that's mainly my thought process. I think I can go a little bit biased a little bit and just think, before we get into it, I really have expectations from our Orlando Magic to be one of the better teams in the East. These guys can stay healthy. I think they're going to be pretty solid. Like I said, we're talking about players that can be the face of the league. I think and expect for Banchero to put his name and his face in that room with these players. I think he takes a huge step if he can be consistent.
Yeah, I just think, we'll get more deep into in the predictions here in a second, but I just think another expectation for me before we go to that first break, how the big men's going to play this year. How the big men going to play, like DeAndre Ayton, Joel Embiid, Karl-Anthony Towns, Victor Wembanyama, Jaren Jackson, Zach Edey, Chet Holmgren, Julius Randle, the triple-headed monster down in Houston, all the big men they got, Porzingis. How some of these bigs going to look throughout the year? Because I'm not saying it's going to see a turn in it, but it seems like a lot of big men play is going to be kind of show heavy this upcoming year. That's another expectation that we got. I think I got right there is like, do the big men make a comeback in the NBA? They're all guard heavy, more wing heavy, but we kind of like the Houston Rockets kind of show in the playoffs. Like, you get some size, and OKC showed it. Get some size and stuff like that, you can do some work. And you go to some of these smaller teams that went small for the past few years, and then they look up, it's like, damn, we ain't got no real legit big. You can take advantage of that. So I'm curious how the big man's going to look this year and whatnot, and does that affect things, for the upcoming season? But when we come back on, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side of things, we'll give our title predictions, MVP favorites, and also talk about Kevin Durant's contract decision with the Houston Rockets. But this is Fast Break here for Ice Sports Radio, Utility Forward Sports. We'll catch you on the other side.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back here to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in with us. This is Fast Break here for IE Sports Radio, Utility Forward Sports. As you heard the promo there, do follow IE Sports Radio on your social media feeds: X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Give us a like, give us a follow. After the show, these broadcasts will be clipped all throughout the algorithm. Give us a like, follow, comment, disagree, agree, comment. Give you your thoughts. We'd like to hear y'all's opinions of what we discussed on tonight's show. D-Locke, Kevin Durant signs a contract extension with Houston, 2 years, $90 million. He could have got more in that deal, but, you know, with the new CBA and the cap flexibility, he took a little pay cut in a sense. This deal stretches out to at least 3 years and approximately $145 million for his total commitment for the Houston Rockets. Real quick, your thoughts on this contract extension for Kevin Durant?
I mean, that man trying to pick up his paper, and I get it. Like I already know, you know. Like I said, I think it's good he's picking up his money. Look, I mean, we know. Let me double check. Kevin Durant is 36, or am I reaching with that?
What was that again? I'm sorry.
I said, is he 36? 37.
No, I think 37.
Yeah, so he's 37. Just recently turned 37. Like I said about the other players earlier, you know, we're at that time now where the guys that we watched, their time is coming up where they're gonna hang it up soon. And they know that. So I think it was smart to go ahead and get that extension on his part. Obviously he could have got more, but pending. I wonder if they're going to possibly try to make a move for another player in the future. How does that play out in their off-season moves and their mid-season moves for another player? But, again, I told you my opinion. I think that Kevin Durant is one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. But I just – that leadership role is the one thing that just has me in question. Where did we get that? Now, clearly, like I said, I think – my biggest thing is now Kevin Durant is turning to one of those players that's hopping literally from team to team. We're seeing him move around multiple times for different reasons, different occasions. So hopefully this is where he can stay throughout this contract. The question is, does he retire after this contract ends? Now, another thing is he is back on that. He's on the west side still, which, as I said, was one of the toughest rankings for me to put together. I think they're going to be one of the better teams to watch out for. I think that this is this West has just got a hell of a lot stronger. And like I said, I go through with my predictions of Western Conference championship. So, but congrats to him on that. I mean, like I said, I think it's well deserved. But definitely, he definitely picking up his money before they have to sign a lot of these other players.
I think for me, I think it was a good move for him. I mean, I think we kind of expected him to get this deal done. For me, like you alluded to, does this deal allow them to make another move since Fred VanVleet is out for the year? If that guard situation ain't really, like it's supposed to be, and Reed Shepherd's kind of like, not rise up to expectations, come past January, do you use one of those bigs that you signed in Capella or Steven Adams to make a move? I think that's one thing you kind of keep an eye on right there. Is like, okay, Reed Shepherd's not coming on like we expected. Jalen Green's gone. Fred VanVleet is gone. I'm trying to pull that roster right now. Let's see what we got. They don't play till damn near Friday, the Rockets.
Mm-hmm.
So, they signed Aaron Holiday. That's nice. JD Davidson, Celtic. I don't know. He's been playing pretty well in this preseason, but he's not somebody you're going to throw in there to kind of take you places for right now. So, I mean, that, you really got no real guards on here. Just looking at this roster. So, I'm kind of curious how, what this roster is going to do, how they're going to shape up things. Like, from the 3 on down, hey, great. Durant, Tari Eason, Jason Tate, and then you act like guys like Cameron Matthews. Then you got Joe Robbie Smith, Dorian Finney-Smith, Jeff Green. Then you got Sagoon, Adams, and Capella. Hey, that front court, solid.
Yeah.
I can't touch that. But that guard, if I'm looking at it right now, besides the man Thompson, everybody else is kind of like, I kind of spectacle right now. But I think it's a good deal. Do I see him retiring with the Houston Rockets? That's hard to say. So I think that's a conversation we have down the road about him retiring with the Houston Rockets. But for the short term right now, before we get to our predictions, I think, good move for him, good for the Rockets. And the taxes won't hurt since he's playing in Texas. Because he's been playing like in New York and LA, and those taxes eat the fuck up out of you. I don't know about the California. I mean, Arizona situation. I'm pretty sure you pay high taxes there. Oklahoma, I don't think we playing there. I don't think that'd be that bad. So, but I think being in Texas, not paying that state tax, I think we'll stretch a long way on that. But D-Locke, we got MVP predictions, title predictions. Let me get the title in here real quick. D-Locke, I'll let you go first.
We'll start off
right here. For the 2025-2026 NBA season, who do you got making the Eastern and Western Conference Finals? And who do you got winning the NBA championship?
All right, so I'm gonna start off with the East. I'm a big Orlando Magic fan. But I think one of the biggest things about being a person that is a co-host on a podcast is sometimes, and we have to listen to a lot of co-hosts, take your personal fan base out of decisions.
Yep.
Some co-hosts, some people don't know how to do that. So as much as I am a Orlando Magic fan and have huge expectations for my team, I don't have them going to the Eastern Conference Finals. I have the Cleveland Cavaliers and the New York Knicks.
Okay.
I think that injuries hurt the Cavs big time. Both of these teams had injury issues. I think that the Cavs, the depth of having Mobley and Jared Allen, I think that's going to play a huge part. I think a huge pickup, we may see him as having a pretty decent year is Lonzo Ball. Darius Garland is going to be out for some time. But I think that Donovan Mitchell is going to be somebody who can put his name into the MVP race. Because this team has the talent. They have the pieces around them. And right now, in my mind, I just think that as the Celtics losing Jason Tatum, I think that's going to be a huge hurt for Boston. As I think Derek White is going to lead the charge for that team. Also with Jaylen Brown. But I think that Jason Tatum is that missing piece that's going to hurt them. I think Kenny Atkinson and the Cavs, they found their way. I mean, like I said, I think the East is going to be better. I think the pitches are going to be better. The Pacers are going to take a drop back with Halliburton being out. Milwaukee, right now, I'm out on Doc Rivers right now. But that's a different conversation for a different day. So right now, I got the Cavs going. I also got the Knicks going. I think that this team they made the big move going to get Mike Brown as their coach. What Tibbs did last year, we already talked about it when he was in Chicago, when he was in Minnesota, and all these other different places. Tibbs overuses his athletes, his players. And what happens is they get in the playoffs and they're fried. Their bodies are cooked. So I think that's going to be something that we'll see. I think that Mike Brown makes that adjustment. This team is too deep, in my opinion. I think, like I told you before, like I said in the previews, one of the biggest picks that I like that they did was they went and got Jordan Clarkson. I think that was a great pickup. You got the depth, none to be. You also got Garsharon Yusabeli, so now you got some more bigs down there. Getting Trey Jemison from the Pelicans, so now you got some depth up in that big with those bigs. Now, granted, I think they're fine with Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson, but going to get some more bigs down there, I think that's going to play a huge piece, especially going against the Cavs. Now, I got the Knicks and the Cavs, and I got the Knicks finally going to the NBA Finals. And I mentioned just recently about Garsharon Yusabeli and Trey Jemison. I think because how this roster is set up, they have a little bit more depth than the Cavs. I think the battle of the bigs is going to play a huge part. But with Jalen Brunson, Bridges, who we know can have that outstanding defense, that he definitely plays a huge part on. Donovan Mitchell, Jordan Clarkson coming in, none to be. These guys, they have the roster, and we knew it last year. They added some pieces onto it, but they replaced the coach who we knew played a huge part in. They'd be blowing out the Toronto Raptors by 30 in the fourth quarter, and Jalen Brunson still out there trying to go for a 40 piece with 10 rebounds. I don't think we see that too much this year. So to me, Stephen A is going to be big on this as far as other Knicks fans. But I definitely think I definitely have the Knicks going to the NBA Finals. I think we see Karl Anthony Towns as a potential MVP candidate. I think he has those type of numbers.
You think so?
At this point, I think if he can stay healthy, he has the range. You know what I mean? He's not how Shaq was, where Shaq literally grabbed boards, blocks, and he just is under the rim. Now he got to the line, But Karl-Anthony Towns can drack up some threes too. So now he can kill you in both ways, in many ways. So I think that plays a part with him. And he has the group around him. So he's not the only one that's expecting to have those points and that type of game. I just think that if Karl-Anthony Towns can stay healthy and be consistent, he could be in that MVP range. I don't think he win it, but I think he's definitely in the range of it. So I got the Knicks going.
Okay.
Now the West. This is one of the hardest rankings that I had to put together because so many teams made improvements. I think Golden State is going to be very good. I think the Lakers made a big move by getting DeAndre Ayton. Like you mentioned, I think the Houston Rockets did. Going to get Kevin Durant was a huge piece of adding with the guys that they have. But there's two teams that I just can't pick them over. OKC is definitely going back to the Western Conference Finals. There's no way they should. This team, we talked about it just a couple of years ago when I believe they had the number 1 seed, and was like, well, damn, when this team kind of grows and matures a little bit, I think we're going to win the NBA Finals. Boom, it happened. Now I think this team has been there. They had the experience, and now they're going to be a team to reckon with. Having that same core back is what's going to cause issues for the whole West. Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein and Jalen Williams with Jane, your bigs are phenomenal. Okay, you need some defense. Cool, you got Dort and you got Caruso, right, with a little bit of leadership in that. And you got Kason Wallace, who can go up there and jack up points when you need to give SGA a break if needed. So for me, this team has not dropping off. They've only gotten better in my eyes. The only thing that can hurt this team is injuries. This team is set to go have a possibility to go back to NBA Finals. The team that I have them going against, I got to go against the Denver Nuggets. There's no way I'm going against the Joker. One of the things that we've seen that Nuggets struggled with last year is, okay, cool, Aaron Gordon played awesome sometimes. But when they played against teams that had 2 bigs or 3 bigs and they banged up on Jokic, there was nothing to do. When Michael Porter couldn't get clicking, he couldn't hit his shot, the Nuggets were cooked. And we talked about that, even on their NBA Finals run, what are they going to do with Michael Porter? They made a massive, in my opinion, a huge move going to get Bruce Brown, Cameron Johnson, and Joe Val. I think you have 2 starting fives in a sense. You have a rotation now where you're not asking Jokic to give you a triple dub every game. Remember those games where he had 20 points and 20 rebounds and 10 assists. He's not going to be needed to do that. So now that you have a Joe Val who can go in there and give you some meaningful minutes, I think that's wonderful. And then, and by the way, now you can put Bruce Brown on the best player on that team. And if you need some range, somebody can shoot and have a little bit of defense, you got Cameron Johnson as well. I think I really like what this team did during the offseason. They've adjusted a few things that played a huge part, but they got the main piece in Jokic. Jamal Murray, they got these pieces. They're not going anywhere. My thing is, what does David Edelman do with this crew? This is going to come down to coaching big time, in my eyes. Another big piece that they did get was Tim Hardaway Jr.
Yeah.
Okay, you move Michael Porter. Now you got another shooter. So I got the Denver Nuggets and the OKC Thunder. I think this series goes to 7. And I think, as I said before, what this comes down to is coaching.
Yeah.
I got OKC going back to the NBA Finals. This is a tough decision because I know the Nuggets have a hell of a roster put together. But I think coaching comes down to this and the experience that OKC has. they know now what they can do with the pieces that they have. They face the Nuggets. Both of these teams being NBA championships recently. I think both of these teams are teams that are deserving. But I just think that SGA is entirely too much. I think that him being who he is, and I have him right now being a MVP candidate, that rotation that they have is going to be just a little too much for the Denver Nuggets. I mean, I think it comes down to that Game 7. I think it's a very interesting series. But I got OKC going, playing the New York Knicks. And with that being said, I got OKC repeating. With SGA being the MVP of the NBA Finals. This team is a very good team and a very young team. The biggest piece that they made a few years ago was getting Alex Caruso.
Yes.
I think bringing in somebody that's a defender and knows what it feels like to win was a huge piece. I think what's going to play a huge part in this series between the Knicks and OKC with the NBA Finals, one, Jalen Williams. He's going to play a huge part because both teams have the guy that they need. I think, like I told you, I think Cat is going to be in the MVP range. But with Chet Holmgren now, Isaiah Hartenstein, Jalen Williams, I think that OKC, who's been there, can manage to repeat. SGA, like I said, I have him being the MVP of the NBA Finals. And the MVP of the league, I got the Joker.
Okay.
He put up phenomenal numbers last year. I'm talking about phenomenal numbers. His numbers was outrageous. But I think what we get from him this year is very similar, but a better Nuggets team. More consistent, as if he wasn't already. But I think the Nuggets will need Jokic more than SGA was going to need. OKC is going to need SGA for their records. I think that Jokic is going to have another outstanding season. It's going to be tough. Like I said, I have Jokic being the winner. I have SGA being a candidate, and I also have Karl-Anthony Towns being there. Those are my three. But I think that what the Joker can do, he is just I think he's the best player in the league. It's very hard to not have him there. I think Giannis is also a athlete that's going to be part of the MVP talk. An outsider looking in right now, depending on how Boston looks, I think Jaylen Brown may be in that talk as well. But for me, I just think that right now, Joker's the best player in the league, and that's without question. Another sleeper, but as far-fetched, is Luka. But I think that Jokic is he is who he is. I mean, his numbers are he's going to be the best player in the league once again. Now he just has a better team put around him, not only for him to get his numbers, but to go far in the playoffs. So for me, I have Jokic being the MVP. OKC versus Denver Nuggets, Western Conference Finals. Cleveland versus New York Knicks, Eastern Conference Finals. OKC versus the New York Knicks, NBA Finals. And OKC repeating, with SGA being the MVP.
Real quick for me, I think, if you go to the Eastern Conference, a lot of good contending teams, and some teams are kind of like they were there last year, but I think they knocked down a bit because of injuries. So teams like the Pacers, in my opinion, are going down a couple pegs because losing Miles Turner and Halliburton they're going to hurt. Let's be real about that. The Cavs, we talked about the Cavs. Like, if the injuries didn't happen throughout the playoffs, I think you're talking about a team that possibly would go into the Eastern Conference Finals. And then, if they get matched up in the finals with the Thunder, if they, get a game 7 and didn't lose their star player and anything like that, I think they could have taken up OKC. I don't know. Maybe that's ifs and buts. Just looking my contenders, the Knicks. I'm curious what Mike Brown does different than Tibbs. The bench, they done a decent job overhauling. If I was them, I'd probably holler at Malik Beasley.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you just have another score out there. I mean, you can get him for cheap for a bet minimum, and then go back from there. It's kind of like more firepower in a sense. But for me, I look at a team that's I'm itching for them to kind of take next step. It's like, damn, if y'all just stay healthy and develop the young guys well enough, I think y'all could do things. And my Eastern Conference Finals matchup will look like this. I got your Orlando Magic and the Cleveland Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference Finals. I went like this. History. The Orlando Magic, since they've been in the league, whenever they got young guys in the fold, where it's like between Shaq and Penny, Dwight Howard, like a few years to their career, I don't say all some, but they make a trip to the finals. Where and happens in very different circumstances. Like, Jordan retired and then next thing boom, the Magic's there in the finals. When Dwight and them made it, Hedo Turkoglu and Skip to my Lou, Ray for Austin, Anthony Johnson playing all their mind, and they beat down the Cavs. If it wasn't for that LeBron, Lassick, and Heave, they would swept the damn Cavs in that series. And then we talking about a Courtney Lee missed layup, making a difference in that NBA Finals. But I just looking at trends, and I think the trend right now, this Magic team will make the Eastern Conference Finals. But I don't got them making to the NBA Finals yet. I got the Cavs making the NBA Finals. It got to hinge on everybody staying healthy and everybody playing consistent ball. And no changes happens at the point guard spot. If those things can happen, the trade rumors kind of get brushed to the side. Everybody playing well. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers will make the NBA Finals for the first time in years without LeBron. So I got the East Conference Finals looking at like that. I think the Magic will beat the Knicks in the semifinal round.
Okay.
In the second round. So I think that. So if you kind of look where I'm going, ladies and gentlemen, I got the Knicks at the 2 seed and Magic at the least a 3 seed. If all said and done, when the season ends, and the Cavs being number 1 once again. And then I think a team like Milwaukee will be like number 4 in my eyes, and everything else. I know we did the rankings and stuff like that, but that's just rankings, and then you kind of like think through like another week, and then you see how things play out, and I think that's how things will play out. So, but the Cavs going to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Magic, and the Cavs winning that matchup. Now, on the West side of things, I want to stick to my toes. I'm going to stick to my guns on this prediction I had in my head months ago. I know the team lost a key guard for the upcoming year. But I'm going to stick to my guns and have the Rockets and Thunder in the Western Conference Finals. Ladies and gentlemen, I had the Rockets going to the Western Conference Finals before the VanVleet injury. Now, some of y'all probably listen to this and say, like, well, Fred's gone. Are you going to make a change? No, I'm going to stick to my guns on this. I'm going to stick to my guns on this. I think this team makes the Western Conference Finals. You know, the Thunder, I think they'll make a return trip. I think the things is going, and the Thunder better hope what happens that the Nuggets are at least a 2 or 3 seed come playoff time, because you don't want to see the Nuggets if you're the Thunder in the second round like you did this past year.
No.
Yeah, some of y'all probably think I smoking crack, you know, having the Rockets over the Nuggets.
I don't disagree with you, though.
But, you know, we talk about the changes that the Nuggets did, in which they did a phenomenal job. Getting Cameron Johnson, getting Valanciunas, getting Bruce Brown back in the fold, Tim Hardaway in the fold. We stacked very nicely. But the Rockets, I think they can counteract in the same way. Dorothy and Smith can guard multiple positions. The two big we signed Steven Adams, signed Clint Capella.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I watched a little bit of the Rockets preseason. Jeff Green is at 38 years old, still looks good.
Oh yeah.
Corey Eason looks good at front court. Kevin Durant, score anybody, still looks good. The guards, I think that's being a concern, but I think, you know, with the coaching and the depth in the front court, I think, you know, you got, you know, you sign these guys to go up against, you know, teams like OKC and Denver. So I got the Rockets going to the Western Conference against the Thunder. And I got the Thunder winning that series. I think, you know, if Houston makes a move for a guard to kind of get the overhunt, cool. But I think the guard play for OKC would be a little bit too much, especially SGA. And you look at Houston's depth chart right now, you know, you got guys like Aaron Holiday and JD Davidson, you know, as your main point guards right now. And I love JD Davidson. He's an Alabama guy, you know, Alabama native. But he ain't somebody, you know, you put on the court and say, hey, man, take us to a championship. Not right now. You know, Aaron Holiday, a veteran, he's bounced around multiple teams for a reason. So I got the Thunder winning there for my championship. It's tough. But I think me and you are in the same boat here. Let me have that. I got the Thunder winning the championship, but my MVP, Anthony Edwards. I'm not saying HGJ can go back to back. I'm not saying Jokic can win the title. I mean MVP title again. I'll throw Giannis in there.
Yeah.
But I just hope with Giannis, I just hope the distractions don't be too much. You know, there's the alleged story about, you know, the wife taking the kids back to Greece because they like the school system better over there. I can attest to that. So that, you know, talking about Giannis, maybe trying to finish out his career in Greece. You know, he got his brothers in the fold. Maybe that helped him motivate, play better. You know, also you got Luka, and how much a statement early on without LeBron can he make in the MVP race as well? Also, other guys look around. Jaylen Brown. I think he'll be like a big stats guy this year. And like I said, I think the Celtics still make the playoffs. I think he'll damn near average close to 30 points a game, Jaylen Brown. So,
Yeah.
There's Karl Anthony Towns, like you mentioned, Jalen Brunson, another person, Kate Cunningham. If you think about like a top 10, Victor Wembanyama, how does he look in year 3? So those guys in my MVP contention, but for some reason now I just got Edwards, leading the Wolves to at least a top 4 seed and possibly being in the MVP talks. If you don't get it, then SGA, Jokic, probably the 2 favorites. Some folks will like to throw in Joel Embiid, but I gotta see how he looks first for a extended period of time, and he's got to play multiple games, and not the bare minimum. I'm sorry. So, your thoughts, real quick, before we head off on the predictions and whatnot.
I have just one question. I mean, I like everything. Do you think the Rockets make a move during the season for a guard, like a vet, or like what are your thoughts on that?
We'll see how they look, and they sign those guys. They sign those guys in free agency, so those guys can be eligible for trade till like what, late December, early January, somewhere around there. So, depending on how they look, and depending on how the guard play is, possibly, and it's got to be a move that could put them over the hump.
Yeah.
Because like you can't trade, for example, for no shade to him, but like Gabe Vincent, and expect things to to put you over the hump. Nah, I think you gotta, like maybe look like a Neesmith or Never Hard from the Pacers, something like that, kind of put you over the hump. That's what I look at. Also, depending, how some of these other teams look throughout the season, you grab a guard from there, in a sense, or the buyout market come trade deadline. CJ McCollum, he's over there in Washington. His last part of his deal, if he get bought out, you kind of scoop him up. So a lot of questions, a lot of guys you can look around and whatnot and kick the tires on and peek your head at. But, for me, I think depending on how the season goes and who's running the point and how the offense looks, they probably will make a move by the trade deadline.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking at this roster, like you said. I'm looking at, Finney Smith, a coach, and Steve Adams, Clint Capella. I mean, his team is somewhat as loaded as the Denver Nuggets and others. So they do have a hell of a roster. And obviously Kevin Durant being KD, it's gonna be tough, man. I mean, but again, we talk about the West like this all the time. Who can last in a 7-game series? Because if the Rockets, they got to match up against OKC, or they got to match up against the Nuggets, or hell, they got to match up against the Timberwolves or the Warriors. These matches are going to be put out at some point. So again, the West is going to be pretty interesting, man. But like I said, I think we both were very close on these expectations. Having both teams go to the NBA Finals, and OKC repeating, I think that plays a huge part, because I think OKC is that good, and young. I think they're gonna be a team that's gonna be tough to beat. But I ain't gonna lie, I can see the Rockets, and maybe the Nuggets having something to say about that. If they can, get to Game 7 with OKC, if OKC goes to Game 7, a couple rounds in the playoffs, we might see something a little different. But right now, I think OKC is a team to beat.
Yeah, I think OKC's team to beat. The depth really didn't change. They didn't do wholesale changes. They gave guys contract extensions. As we're on the show right now, the Blazers, gave Shaden Sharp an extension, and along with the defensive guy, I forgot his name. I'm pulling up right now. Like Shams had it up earlier. Let me pull it up. Ooh, notifications. There we go. The Blazers gave Toumani Camara a 4-year, $82 million extension as well. So they locking up their young guys, but it's cool and all, but we're close to contention, and are you banking that some of these teams, down the line fall down the wayside, like the Warriors, Lakers, per se, Clippers? It's kind of hard to say, give these guys contract extensions and you still be in the same place 4 years later. 4 years from now, we probably still talk about OKC on the top of the food chain.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at these teams that we have in our Final Four, before we get out of here, the Cavs, what they look like 4 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
Nuggets, what they look like 4 years from now. Aaron Gordon, I think 30 or something like that.
Yeah, definitely up there.
Jokic, he's getting up. I mean, he'd be up there in age. Jamal Murray, he seems like being held up on pins. On pins and needles. The Magic, 4 years from now, I will hope
Prime
that main core will still be intact.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the Rockets, does Durant still hoop with y'all? But other than that, the main thing is, does Amin Thompson and Sagoon be like a top 10 players in the NBA type of talk?
Mm-hmm. A good duo.
So, yeah, extensions are nice. And, new ownership for the Blazers. For right now, he claims he's going to keep the team in Portland. But, do these guys make strides? I don't got the Blazers going anywhere, but, the West is deep. But you never know how things shake out and whatnot. But I'll let you have the last word.
I think that, again, the teams that we do have making the top four, they have a good group. Out of all teams, OKC and Orlando Magic are the two teams are probably the youngest. You know what I mean? With the rosters that they have. I think also Cleveland's probably, one of those teams as well. That'd be pretty good in a couple of years. But to me, you may see Jokic a little bit older. You may see Kevin Durant might move on from then. What does the Knicks look like? Because we know how they go. They have a team now, and 3 or 4 years now, they done traded Karl Anthony Towns and moved Jalen Brunson for some reason. So for me, I think that 4 years is again, like I was talking about earlier, about every 4 years is the Olympics, right? It comes around, but it goes around quick. What teams do look like this? Can OKC keep this core for the next 2 or 3 years or 4 years? Can Orlando stay healthy? My biggest issue with Orlando, I've seen it 2 times. I almost seen them 3 times. It's a good. I'm not happy that Boban didn't work, but hell, he went to LA too. So get these guys, and then they go pack it up and go somewhere else and leave Florida. So is Banchero, a magic for life? Those kind of things. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see what happens. But with this group that we have, I think it's something that we enjoyed. I'll tell you this though, in 4 years, I don't know if we really see LeBron, Steph, Jimmy Butler, Kevin Durant, possibly. These guys are going to be gone. So we're going to be leaning on these other players that are the young guys that are going to step up. In 4 years, where do we see Giannis? You know what I mean? These are questions that got to be answered. So again, I think what we have is a nice group, but I think at the same time, it's very interesting to see. That's what's making the NBA season so super excited coming up in a couple of days.
So I think for us, it's going to be a very interesting season. It's going to be a very interesting season. I think the one thing that we kind of lacks right now is kind of like brand. They got player brands like, LeBron, Steph, Luka, Anthony Edwards and Giannis right now. And, hopefully down the line, Victor Wembanyama, Cooper Flag, John Morant get the heads right to be those next brands. But team brand, OKC, can they be a new team brand that fans will love over the next few years? The Denver Nuggets, same thing. Continuity up top, can you keep them as a brand? The Houston Rockets, same thing. You already got the brands like the Celtics, Lakers, Knicks, but can teams like the Magic come to the fray and be consistent the next few years? And teams like people like them as a team and all that. That's something that kind of, next 4 years, can your team sell you to the fan base? But we shall see. But this has been our show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning us with us tonight on another broadcast here on Fast Break. D-Locke, how can people find you on social media?
You guys can find me at Black-813. My Bucks do play tomorrow Monday night. We got the Lions. Now that goes Mike Evans and Memphis probably play. So very interesting. Also can't wait for the NBA season to pop off Tuesday, and it's on and popping on Wednesday. And very interesting next week live show. Let them know they can find you on the show's page.
You can find the show's page at Fast Break at IESR. That's Fast Break IESR. Tuesday, we go live. NBA tip off. We live tweeting the games. College basketball around the corner. A lot of exhibitions going on around the world of college basketball. Alabama seems like they're on pace to be having to coach out 100 points again this year. So that's going to be fun to cover. Also, do follow me on Twitter at Spawn4288. That's Spawn4288 on X. I cried about my Titans all day today, so there's that. Do follow me on the Crooks Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Do follow me on there and those sites. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, the NBA season starts this week. We'll be live reacting next Sunday about all the results. Until then, we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.